In the meantime, we're rejoined by Neama Rahmani, now president of West Coast Trial Lawyers, a former federal prosecutor. Neama, thanks for coming back with us to talk about what Rachel was saying. Do you think she doesn't think that the timing here or the late hour is going to be material to what ends up happening here? Do you agree?
Of course. There's no doubt in my mind that this was fast-tracked. Obviously, look, it's up to the grand jurors, right? They can choose to stay late or they can go home, and they wanted to stay late. But I wouldn't be surprised if the pressure was on after that document was posted to the Fulton County Court website. That's not something you typically see. That's a docket that's prepared after the clerk's office receives the true bill. And clearly, the grand jury was still meeting. So I don't know if they had a draft indictment or something else. Yeah.
So, Neama and Rachel, let's see if we can get this in before the news conference in Atlanta begins. Let me ask you both this question. If we had a kind of a pecking order of the significance of these cases, because we now have Mr. Trump indicted in 4 different places, in the state of Florida, federal charges, in Washington, D.C., federal charges, right? In New York City, that's the charge about hush money to a former mistress. Now, a grand jury indictment returned in Atlanta for trying to overturn, allegedly, the results of the 2020 election. If you had to stack these in order of significance, forgetting about Fed versus state, how would you do that? Neama, let's start with you.
In my mind, there's no doubt that the D.C. case is the most significant. That's the one where Special Counsel Jack Smith has honed in on Donald Trump. There's no co-defendants. The case is fast-tracked. We may get a trial in early 2024. And let's be honest, we have the judge, Judge Sutton, who has a history of slamming the Capitol rioters. So that's going to be the most significant. I think the least is clearly the Manhattan case. That may be reduced to a misdemeanor if Alvin Bragg's office can't show the cover-up or the fraud was in furtherance of or to cover up another crime. And Trump has a defense there that it was just trying to protect his family. And then, I'd say in the middle are the classified documents case and Fonnie Willis's case. Willis's case, the only reason I'm saying it's not number 2 is because there's going to be so many co-defendants. There's so many allegations. There's no way that case is going to go to trial before the November 2024 election.
Okay, Rachel, what do you think?
I agree for the most part, although I think the Georgia case might be number 2 just because it has the potential to turn so many witnesses against Trump based on 19 people being charged, and 19 people don't want to go to prison for what they did for Trump. And I think it is so related to the D.C. case. There are so many facts that intersect there in the general, at least the purview of what's both been charged at D.C. and in Georgia. I agree with Neama. It would be very difficult to get this case to trial prior to the election, but they may try, or they may at least get their witnesses lined up in advance. And it's also a case that Trump cannot pardon himself from because it's a state case. So that's a pretty big deal, too. So I'm actually going to put the Georgia case number 2 over the classified documents case because classified documents have so many issues simply in the evidence and getting the evidence to the jury because they're classified.
Right. Yeah, Rachel, you mentioned so many potential people flipping here with 19 people named, 18 including the former plus the former president. Do you think that 18 people could flip against one man, or do you think that it could go, the buck could stop to a point where we could see some big names like Rudy Giuliani and Mark Meadows go to jail?
Well, it's really hard to say what Rudy Giuliani is going to do. He's a little erratic these days. Mark Meadows, on the other hand, he may be more likely to flip. Again, we didn't see him named in the D.C. case, and we don't think he's one of the 6 co-conspirators. So he may be already working with Jack Smith. We don't know. John Eastman, on the other hand, he's been fairly adamant, but you don't need 18 people to flip. You need a couple to flip to really get the job done. And probably out of 18, aside from Donald Trump, you're going to get that.
Is there anything about the names that so far have come out, actually all the names have now come out, that surprises either one of you?
Well, I'll start there. I mean, obviously, the lawyers are the most important. And the reason they're the most important is because they play into Trump's defense. I mean, his defense in both cases, both in Atlanta and D.C., is going to be that he really believed that he lost, that he won the election, and that he was conducting an audit of the results, or that he was following his lawyer's advice, even though it was bad advice. He's going to say, listen, my lawyers were Rudy Giuliani, former U.S. Attorney in New York, former mayor of New York, John Eastman, a prominent dean here in Southern California where we are. So I think the lawyers are going to be the most important. But obviously, we're seeing a 98-page indictment, and we're seeing some of the lesser folks. I think they're going to be much more likely to flip the equivalent of the law.
Can I ask you guys, and I'm going to apologize in advance, I'm going to ask you guys a nasty question, even though you're both attorneys, so just be prepared. And my nasty question is, it is noteworthy that in these indictments thus far handed down, actually I think this is the end of them, how many officers of the court, how many attorneys have been indicted along with Donald Trump. And I'm wondering what that says about, well, to be quite honest, your profession. What does that say about lawyers? Sorry, guys, but,
I'm happy to start here, or unhappy to start here, but you don't get all those lawyer jokes without anything behind them. So I think that Donald Trump, he's the president of the United States. He was the president, the highest office of the land. He can certainly drum up dirty lawyers that are going to help him do his business. And lawyers were incredibly important to this scheme. And what made them important is things are done under privilege when they're lawyers, and you have a specific advice that you can rely on when you have lawyers in your corner. But at this level of fraud, I am not that surprised to see this many lawyers involved. And I know that doesn't say much about the profession, but at the same time, lawyers are people with all of the same political views that are diverse and divisive around the country. And so I am not surprised that the level of these charges and this scheme involved so many lawyers.
Legal experts Rachel Vizet and Neama Rahmani joining us live on the KNX Newsline. I'm joined in studio with Charles Feldman. I'm Brian Ping. We're awaiting a live news conference that could start in minutes from Fulton County, Georgia, talking about this indictment. Donald Trump and 18 others are said to be involved in this, named in the indictment.